So I just want to know, as someone who spent 2 years during the pandemic working for the BBC, reporting a documentary, where I had to go through a very rigorous fact-checking, verification process for anything that we would publish in any of our scripts. I just would like to know, as someone who worked with the BBC on a very, very dangerous documentary, which required so many steps of approval. I can't even begin to show you the emails and the messages on WhatsApp, the sensitivities, trying to take into consideration harm done to our sources. I would just like to know how the BBC allows for this to happen. And I would like to put it in a context in which NBC News did a Twitter thread that exposed them as peddling disinformation without sources. NPR aired a 10-minute interview with Benjamin Netanyahu as he completely lied and did not misinformation or false information, as I and many others have been accused of repeatedly publishing false information on this very platform. All of these news organizations are peddling, including CNN with Sarah Sidner at the beginning, who was the originating source, one of them, of the 40 beheaded babies story, including Clarissa Ward. And I'm not trying to name and shame, but these are huge news organizations with deep pockets, and they have a lot of years of experience and entire teams of fact checkers to verify information. Now, as a journalist, as someone who studied journalism, who's practiced journalism, and who makes mistakes like all journalists, I would just like to understand, is this a mistake that the BBC published? Is it a mistake for NPR's Steve, I forget the journalist's name, who interviewed Netanyahu as he continued to make claim after claim that had been debunked and disproven on this platform and in the mainstream media? I would just like to ask my fellow colleagues, I would just like to ask you to not just sweep this under the bus, but to take a serious look into the mirror and to really question, what are you doing and why are you doing it? Is this intentional? And if it is, why? How is it that this platform that claims to, I am grateful for those at Facebook and at other social media friends of mine inside, and by friends I mean people who care about accuracy and fairness and who really believe that there is a public need to know, but how is Netanyahu as a political state actor protected? How is he protected to speak on NPR? How can NPR publish that and not get flagged as repeatedly publishing false information? I am angry because I am ashamed. I am angry because I am ashamed of the state of journalism in light of not just a genocide in Gaza, but in light of the incredible disproportionate power dynamics, which is the reality on the ground, in light of the obvious media blackout and the attempts to disseminate disinformation. This is all allowed, and yet it is us, independent journalists, others, voices, activists, actors, artists who are speaking out, who are, because of our humanity, we are trying to dig deep and we are trying to be fair and we are trying to understand what the hell is going on here. And I know I sound unprofessional, but I'm pissed off, and it is not unprofessional to be pissed off about knowingly patterns in the media of knowingly disseminating information that is directly coming, or indirectly, but more often than not directly coming from a state actor. Just because Israel is a state and Hamas, the resistance movement of the Palestinian people whose land was occupied in 1948, Palestine was a state under the British mandate. The BBC should be ashamed of how transparent, and I have friends and colleagues who work there. I have people who I have cried with, who I have spoken to, and I'm not saying that there are not some people who do good work at any of these news organizations, but that is not the problem. The problem is that the media is not only implicated and complicit in the genocide, it is disgracefully irresponsible, not just in how it writes headlines and it erases Palestinians and dehumanizes them in the ways that it uses certain terminology to humanize Israelis despite the genocide and ethnic cleansing that causing. It is shameful that this is something that we have to wake up every day in addition to enduring and seeing our brothers and sisters, humans, brothers and sisters, not just because we're Palestinians or Arabs. These are brothers and sisters of our human race. We are all worthy of basic dignity and respect. Put the politics aside for a second and ask yourself, why are you being lied to by so many news platforms? And why is the truth only available on social media despite the deliberate censorship? I don't know how many people exist on these platforms that have compromising ties to intelligence services or whatever it might be, but this has got to be addressed in a serious way. I am so sick and tired of having to constantly beg the journalists and the publishing platforms to equally and fairly sanction voices who are disseminating. There is a difference to getting something wrong, as I have and as other people have, because we live in an age of AI and CGI where it's difficult to verify. But those of us who are spending all of our waking hours trying to do that, because we do at the end of the day believe in justice and in the systems that exist to protect us all from nuclear annihilation or genocide or ethnic cleansing or worse. This is obscene, and it is a word that I use often because I don't know what the hell to call this. Get it together.